do another like vlog. I've done a couple and not posted them because that's what I do sometimes. And also I have I haven't done one on my phone in a while, so it's better quality hopefully. At least it's wider. Jamar Duran, as always, look to thecookie.org, at Jamar Duran, anywhere, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, get at me. But I'm going to talk about the Mandela Effect. People have talked about it. It's not that new. I know when it first popped up. I'll give you a quick review and then go into some deep details about it. So if you don't know what the Mandela Effect is, first of all, I believe it. I mean, not believe it. I know it's true. There's no way to prove that it's not true, so don't try to if you don't believe it. If you don't understand it or believe it or whatever, just know that you're one of the people that it doesn't affect or won't get it or whatever. So the Mandela Effect, and I can go into a lot of details, but you can Google it. Don't Google it. Listen to me. It started from this one lady a long time ago who had these memories of Mandela dying in prison. She talked about it, and other people did too. There's a lot of people who had these memories of Mandela dying in prison, Nelson Mandela. But if you check any history book right now, he didn't die in prison. He actually got out at some point in 2000s, I guess. I don't even remember when. Was it late 90s? And actually, I think served as president for a while before he did die later on. And it's just like weird, like how do so many people have these very specific, distinct, shared memories of this man dying in prison? There are people even saying like, I wrote a paper about it. I talked to my mom about it. My mom cried, you know, all these stories or whatever. So then more people started sharing other memories, these kind of like false memories that they have of these shared false memories that if you Google it right now, you'll find out it wasn't true. So what's going on? Like government conspiracy, they just don't remember, blah, blah, blah. You can say a lot of things. But the theory is, and it's a theory that I believe in, is that there really is a multiverse. So if you're in the comics and you're a nerd, you get sci-fi, what that is. That this is one universe that we exist in, but there's a maybe infinite number of other universes like our universe. Very similar to or different, whatever. Just like you might see in the Flash right now. Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3. And at some point in our life, and maybe not in our life, whatever, at some point those universes collapsed or folded or connected, or that some of us slide between universes, whether it's our consciousness or whatever. I totally believe it, like 100%. I know it's true. But it's interesting. It's just interesting. So the Nelson Mandela one is one. Another one is the Berenstain Bears. So if you know, it's a popular book that all children read. I read as a child, and also I think it was a cartoon for a little while. A lot of us remember it being Berenstein, as in S-T-I-N. If you look it up now, it's S-T-A-I-N, and we're confused about that. So that's one. And what's funny, like a lot of us have very distinct, specific memories that align. Like for instance, I always said it wrong as a kid. Like I didn't know what they were saying, so I went to go look it up to check it out. And when I looked it up, I found S-T-E-I-N. Years later, when I was working in the library, I passed by a book and it said S-T-A-I-N, and I was like, huh? Did they change that? So that's one. Another one is the famous Forrest Gump quote. Almost everyone thinks that the Forrest Gump quote is life is like a box of chocolates. But if you watch it now, apparently, I haven't looked this one up, he says life was like a box of chocolates. Or Interview with the Vampire, the famous movie and book, I guess, Anne Rice, that Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise maybe, is Interview with the Vampire. And I can go on and on. There's a bunch. One of the ones that I just looked up was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. The word dilemma. I remember being in like 4th or 5th grade learning how to spell it and thought it was really odd that it's spelled with an N. Other people were spelling it with, like my ex would say dilemma because she thought it was funny. Or even that thing with the Interview with a Vampire and the other lady would capitalize the A all the time. You look it up now, not true. That's because some of us either have better memory of the other universe or we slip back and forth between them, or we have these remnants. And it's really weird too because like you have these vague memories of something and you can't prove it, but other people agree with you or whatever. It's really odd. And I've known about it for a while and I believe it, but the reason I'm talking about it right now is because I realize we always think of it on this macro level because, you know, 30-40% of the population remembers this history that doesn't exist now. But I want to come to a micro level, to my own life, to your life. But before I get there, because I know there's some people who like doubt that this is a thing or don't believe it, and you're going to do everything you can to prove it, but you can't. You can't prove otherwise. People always do things like, no, here's a book from 1970s, and you can see, yeah, that's because the universes have merged now, so you can't prove it. It's either you believe it or you don't, and maybe one day some deep science stuff will open up something and they'll figure out, like, this is true. People try to say maybe it's a government conspiracy. No, I don't think it's anything like that. I really do think it's these worlds colliding or bouncing or passing or well, whatever. But anyway, to bring it back to the micro level I was mentioning, which I think is very interesting, there have been arguments and fights that I've gotten into with people, you know, big, small, whatever, it doesn't matter, in my family, my exes, where they might accuse me of something, or I accuse them of something, either way, and the other party has no memory of it at all, like whatsoever, like it never happened. And I'll be in those moments, and I'm looking at that person, I'm searching their face, and like, I can't tell if they're lying, if they don't want to admit to what they did, or if they really think I'm crazy, or am I crazy? And it hit me like this could also be the Mandela Effect, that in my life, it is very clear, and I can tell you this happened on this date, and this happened, and that happened, and it happened in this order. And even a lot of times in today's world now, I can prove it through emails and pictures and stuff because everything's captured digitally, social media. So it's like, no, I did say this, but you can see that look in their eye like, I'm certain that didn't happen. I understand mistakes happen. I understand, I know a lot of people that smoke weed and that really messes you up, and other drugs, alcohol, people getting old memories. I understand all those things, but it's bigger and more specific than that. I won't say it for a bunch of reasons, but one of my girlfriends accused me of something really horrible one time. And I was just out of nowhere at the end of our relationship. And I was like, that never happened. Like, nothing even close to that ever happened. Like, I don't know who you're thinking of or what you're thinking about, but I didn't do that. I didn't say that. And I was just like, who are you thinking of? And I was looking at her eyes, and her eyes are just kind of darting all over the place. And it's that same feeling I have when I think about Forrest Gump and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Dilemma and Berenstain Bears and all those things, the Mandela Effect. Same thing with Mandela. I remember thinking, it's just this vague kind of like, but I thought, or I remember when we had this conversation, or I remember whatever. That look in her eyes, the feeling I get in my head when I think about it, she just kind of like looking, like she was searching, and her eyes were darting around, and she didn't respond. I was like, no way would I have done that, because if I had done that, she would have murdered me. And it's like, so after I did this, what happened next? How are we still together a year later or whatever? But it didn't happen, and it was interesting to watch her think that it did. But I have an even better example, because I've been talking to one of my exes about it, because I knew she'd be into this, or I thought she would, and I was right. She's way into it. We both have memories, almost kinda, of a life together that we never had together. And so we hadn't talked for years, a long time, and we've been talking again recently. And when we got back together, she immediately was telling me all these things about, remember when we watched this show and what you said about that show and this show and yada yada yada. And I told her, like, we didn't watch those shows together. We weren't together when that came on. I didn't even like it. I started watching it later. I watched it with another girl. It wasn't you. It wasn't us. We had no contact during those years. I can even tell you all the shows, like Dexter, True Blood, and the other one, Big Love. But she has these very specific, distinct memories of me saying things to her, turning to her, talking about it, telling her to get into it, that she'd like it. And it for sure never happened. I mean, I could easily prove it didn't happen because I was in a different city, a different state with a different person, not watching the show. We can go Google and see what year the show came on. But what makes it really crazy is I have those same kind of memories and feelings. Like, we talk about some of these shows, like we remember being in my apartment, laying on the floor, watching the show together and talking about it. But that didn't happen. The show didn't even come out until 3 years after we broke up. And we know this. I know this. But we still have this memory and this feeling. So it's like whatever other universe, we stayed together, and we both have remnants of this idea that this life together that we actually did not have. We broke up, she got married, had kids, and we stopped talking. And even though that happened, and we know when it happened and how it happened, we still both have this kind of other life that didn't happen. And I know you could say, well, it's the kind of thing you would have done together, or it's all these things that could have been combined. Like, she saw it, she was with somebody else, she imagined what I might say, she was so used to talking to me. But what's really interesting is how we have the same memory. Like, I didn't even know that, but I was telling her, like, yeah, it does seem like we were laying on the floor in my apartment. She's like, yes, on the floor with it. But we weren't. I know we weren't. And it just never occurred to me. Like, I wonder how much stuff where people are disagreeing or fighting or don't see things the same way or don't remember things the same. It's not just that one person's an idiot, which is what we tend to think. And it's not that one person's lying, because I still don't know what my family, like, for instance, I talk about abuse and things that have happened to me in my life. And literally, it's like I'm crazy to people. Like, of course none of that happened. Like, of course it did, because this happened and that happened and that happened. Like, this was what happened. But maybe they don't have memories of that. Maybe they are from, Earth 1 primarily and don't have the Earth 2 memories. And I'm from Earth 2, whatever. I don't know. It's just a really interesting thing to think about. It doesn't scare me or whatever, but it'll mess you up. I'm gonna go. Think about it. Alright guys, it's been a while. I finally got a chance to really talk to you, do another vlog. I've done a couple and not posted them because that's what I do sometimes. And also I haven't done one on my phone in a while, so it's better quality hopefully. At least it's wider. Jamar Duran, as always, look to thecookie.org, at Jamar Duran, anywhere, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, get at me. But I'm going to talk about the Mandela Effect. People have talked about it. It's not that new. I don't know when it first popped up. I'll give you a quick review and then go into some deep details about it. So if you don't know what the Mandela Effect is, first of all, I believe it. I mean, not believe it. I know it's true. There's no way to prove that it's not true, so don't try to if you don't believe it. If you don't understand it or believe it or whatever, just know that you're one of the people that it doesn't affect or won't get it or whatever. So the Mandela Effect, and I can go into a lot of details, but you can Google it. Don't Google it. Listen to me. It started from this one lady a long time ago who had these memories of Mandela dying in prison. She talked about it, and other people did too. There's a lot of people who had these memories of Mandela dying in prison, Nelson Mandela. But if you check in the history book right now, he didn't die in prison. He actually got out at some point in 2000s, I guess. I don't even remember when. Was it the late 90s? And actually, I think served as president for a while before he did die later on. And it's just like weird, like how do so many people have these very specific, distinct, shared memories of this man dying in prison? There are people even saying like, I wrote a paper about it. I talked to my mom about it. My mom